Today on Hidden Secrets, revealed live, the great housing squeeze. America's down payment crisis is forcing a migration. In 2026, housing affordability is still under severe pressure, especially in California, where high home prices and 6% range mortgage rates make down payments and monthly payments hard to manage. So this pushes some households to lower cost states like Texas and Florida. Let me reveal this hidden secret to you live right now on Hidden Secrets Revealed Live. HSRL is a production of Safe New Media. Before you keep watching, let me tell you who this is not for. This show is not for you if you take yourself too seriously. If you are a seeker, let me be your guide to discover accurate truth for yourself. Let me help you increase the quality and effectiveness of your life by revealing to you the hidden secrets of the universe. It's the only podcast of its kind right now on this subject, going live on X, therefore the most popular live stream podcast, live right now on this subject, going live on X. This show is specifically for those who are seeking new perspectives, fresh ideas, and a willingness to explore new possibilities. My intention is to help investors like you stay ahead of the curve and make the most out of emerging opportunities. Today on HSRL, ladies and gentlemen, help me welcome our special guest, Phil Gans, president of Next Wave Mortgage. Phil.
Well, thank you for having me today. I'm really excited to be here. So I'm really pumped, excited, and let's get to it. I'm really pumped. We're gonna have a great time.
Yes. So 2026 mortgage rates. You know about this. You're my mortgage guy. So they're still hovering around the 6% range.
Absolutely.
Is that about
That's
right?
exactly where they are.
Crazy. So that level, what is that doing? That's keeping monthly payments high for many buyers. And for example, I'm in California. Okay. California's down payment assistance is available, right? So how much do you know about, for example, California's Dream for All program? Is that a
Yeah,
thing?
so let me tell you about the Dream for All. It's really the dream for a select few. So the way that it works is that you get 20% up to like $150,000, right? So let's just make this easy. Say you were buying, just to keep the math easy, a $500,000 house. You would get 20%, which is $100,000. You don't make a monthly payment on it. Okay. And that seems like, wow, that's great. But here's also what happens. You're now partners with the state because that money is not free. You're like, what do you mean? Say you sell your house and like 7 years later, and the home is worth 700 grand, right? You have to pay back that original 100 grand, which is fine, but you also have to give the state, if you're above 80% of the area median income limit, 20% of your gain. So, for example, if you sold your house for 700,000, minus all your fees, you typically have to pay realtor fees, so that's 5%, 35 grand. Say you netted like 160, you got to pay another 20%, because you got to pay the state back profit. So the state, this is their way of actually making a profit on the middle class, is that they say, hey, we're going to use this tool to help, home buyers. It always runs out anyways, but, to do this, which, I think is unfair,
Unfair?
because, yeah, it is
For
unfair.
them to make a profit, is that unfair?
The profit's not unfair, but here is what is unfair. That it's unfair, in my opinion, that I would say the 20% seems like a little bit of a high number. Especially, and here's why I think it's unfair. It's unfair, not that they're getting 20%, but home prices are so high in that state that were caused by the government themselves to then say, hey, for the middle class, let's charge you the 20%. It just seems like it's a high number. Does the government deserve to make something? Sure. But they're making everything everywhere anyways. And if you actually compare this to other states, you're like, okay, well, why don't we look at Florida? Well, what would Florida charge me as an interest rates, right? Now, granted, it's not 20%, but if you go, they charge 0, right? That's what they charge. Or you go to Massachusetts, it's 2%. That's a comp because that's a high cost state. But when you look at like California, they caused through their own policies, they've caused home prices to be so astronomically hard that you need this 20% quote to make the payment affordable, which it really is not. And, it's very expensive for a lot of California home buyers.
Yeah, for the middle class, that's crazy. So, for example, Orange County home values are still around the low to mid $1.1 million range. So, if you have a buyer with $275,000, that doesn't stretch very far there in Orange County.
No, and not only does it not stretch, what people have to know is because the cost of like living is so expensive in California on average. If a Californian said, I on average want to save 10% for the down payment, right? Because homes are expensive. You wanted to save 10%, right? You're like, how long does it take for someone in California to save 10%? The answer would be 25 years, which is so crazy. This is actually the reason why California came up with this shared appreciation mortgage. It's called SAM, because they created it. It takes them just as long to save for a down payment as it does once they get the mortgage. So they figured, look, let's start the process earlier. And that's what's so nuts about this.
Okay, so that's on average, right? But what's
on
the
average, right? The average Californian. Yeah.
Okay, so give or take a few, some people might make more money or save more money than others, but what's the reality for families that you're talking to every day? They're feeling this severe pressure and they're looking for a way out.
Yeah. And I'll tell you what they're looking. You're right now having a mass migration to what I call the Midwest and South, which is like home of good college football. Like, if you're in a town or a state that has good college football, let's call it the SEC and Big Ten minus UCLA and USC, the original Big Ten, then look, this is where people are going, because they only have to solve there's usually, in California, you have two issues. You have a monthly payment issue and you have a down payment issue. In the South and the Midwest, you only have one issue, and it's just the down payment issue. That's it, because homes are so affordable. I'll give you an example of this. In Jacksonville, Florida, new home builders are building brand new homes, a 4-bed, 2-bath, right? They're selling these things $350, $325, $340. You're like, no way. 4 bed, 2 bath, 2,000 square feet. You're like, how does it look? They look great. They're brand new. And you're like, people can't even wrap their mind around how they're doing it, right? But they can build these all day long. And when you're sitting there in California or New York and Massachusetts, and you're paying some crazy rent and you can't save, and your option is some shared appreciation mortgage, maybe, you start to look the other way and you're like, yeah, let me try this, this other plan, right? Let me try to buy in Florida or Texas, where the average home price is about 350. It's nothing for these people, right? Especially if they're, going from a high cost state, right? So, you can totally change your lifestyle and be able to, start winning. And that's what they would say: get out of this renting game and start winning and owning very quickly.
Well, what about insurance and property taxes? I mean,
Okay,
I know it's less than California.
Okay,
Gotta
this
be.
is true, but everything's proportional,
Yeah.
right? Like let's talk about taxes. Let's take one item at a time. Okay, let's do Jacksonville. Brand new home, 350. So what are you paying in taxes? $6,000? The home price is low. So yeah, proportionally to the home price, right? Like it's more, but when your homes are so much less. Okay, let's talk about insurance, right? Not all insurances are equal, right? Yes, in Florida, if you live in a coastal area or you live in the water, it can be super expensive. It can be if you live on the water and your home is older. This is true, right? But if you don't live on the water and you're more inland and not in the flood zone, it's actually not so bad. I'll give you an example. I live in Jensen Beach. It's a beach town. And I'm only like 3 miles from the water. You're like, so what's your insurance on a $600,000 house? $3,000? Like, oh, that's not bad. Maybe I pay $2,500. My wife does our bills for me, but it's actually not bad at all. It's just in certain areas when you live like on the water, because your house will get destroyed because you live on the water. Like that's their choice. Like no one ever mentions that. Like if you pick to live on a cliff overlooking the water, that's not my fault, right? So it can be more expensive. But that doesn't mean that there isn't affordable areas or places that will have much more modern insurance, overall, right? But, I was looking at my notes here. It's funny, and I'll bring this up for people, that it takes people that you had someone in Florida that makes a tenth of what someone in California makes. I mean, fractional income compared to, it only takes them 10 years to save up, if they wanted to save 10%. You're like, no way, they can save 1% a year. Yeah, they don't even need to save for a down payment, because down payment assistance makes it so easy for them not to need a down payment in Florida. But it's much more affordable to like start winning and buy a home in the South and in the Midwest than like, and you know what it is? Like if you're young and you want to like become wealthy in like these coasts, East or West Coast, you have to do something like great, like to start off. Like you got to like be like a musician or a basketball player.
Not a musician.
Yes. Yeah, maybe not a musician.
No,
but like you got to do something like amazing or rich parents. People say this, right? Like in Florida, here's the craziest thing. Yo, what do you think about buying in Florida? Like, what do you have to do? Like, be a manager of McDonald's. That's it. Right? You can literally, like, if you made like 75 grand, buy a $300,000 home. There's no way. Walmart manager. It don't matter. Department store. Say you're married, right? Or like two people that make 50 grand. That's 100 grand. You're no way. Yeah, brand new home. Even if not brand new, you can get what you want, right? You can start way sooner, way earlier. You don't have to start like later in life. You're like, you can afford it right away. And by the way, if you did get laid off, let's say at a Wendy's, you can go get a job at Burger King 5 minutes later, right? Like you don't need like when you start having to make extreme amounts of money, you start needing like extreme skill sets because it's hard to get these like high paying jobs, right? That pay all this money, and then not only do you have to make this money, then you're paying all these taxes, and that can be very very. I think in California it's what 13%, right? That's a big
Yeah,
number, 13%.
that's why we call it Taxifornia.
In Florida, when you look at 13%, and people don't realize this, if you made 300 grand, what is that? 13 plus 13 plus 13, right? That's $39,000, right? That's almost 4 grand a month just in your state income tax bill. That's not including your car insurance, your homeowner's insurance, your electricity bill, daycare, da 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 da. Like when you see all the bills stacked, you're like, it's insane, right? It's gotten so high, and you're like, well, what do you think, right? Like I got family in California. My family's from, my dad's from Czechoslovakia. He migrated to California in 1968. Right before, by the way, he had me in 78. Before he got lucky, he was able to migrate to California with open immigration, and then get lucky enough with his family to buy before 1978, where your property taxes were never increased if you bought before 1978, as long as you didn't do like construction on your home.
Yeah, we can get into that. But the thing that you mentioned earlier is, on average, it takes people 25 years. In lower cost states, maybe 10 years if they're lucky. But the thing is, for the middle class, not the ultra wealthy who have no problem buying home on the on the water, but for most middle class households, they can't save enough cash, and they can't do it fast enough for the current price levels. So that makes me wonder, why can't people save money?
Well, I'll tell you the reason why. It's so expensive. They can in Florida. It's much easier to save when things are less expensive. When you go out to eat, it's way less in Florida. Gas is way less in Florida, right? Everything is way less in the South and the Midwest, right? And it's great, right? And by the way, you don't need to save because the houses are so much less expensive. You don't need to save as long or at all, right? Because you just buy a home with no money. And it's like, oh, I can afford it. That's like what people miss. Like, it's much easier to buy a home in the South, in Texas, in Ohio, than it is in California. I'll tell you a funny story. I met this guy in Ohio, and he was like, he wrote some books about his kids buying homes at age 0, right? These kids bought homes at 1. Yeah, I'm like, how? They're like, oh, I helped them, and they flipped money, and I had no idea. But this guy did it. I asked him one question. I said, he told me a story about his kids owned like 600 homes by the age of 18. I said, what state do you live in? And he said, Ohio. I said, yeah, that's easy level. That's like playing Madden on easy, right? You're like, why? Because it's so easy. It's like buying a home is less expensive than buying a car. So it's easy to start with 1. That's the hard where people mess up. And like, you don't have to do anything great to you just need some like minimal job, or like it's so easy to buy a home in the Midwest and the South. It's so easy. Like I said, in California, and in Florida, in California and the East Coast, even professional athletes, if it's on their first contract, may not even qualify. You're like, no way. Yeah. Like say you were like a pro baseball player, and it's like your first year. like you may not make enough to buy in LA. You might have to be like a renter for a while, or in the NFL, right? You get the NFL draft coming. If you're like a pick not in the first round, like the second, third, or fourth round in the NFL draft, but the LA Rams, right? You will be a renter, right? And it's crazy to think like this, but he's a pro athlete. Yeah, in LA, you don't make enough till you really make it, right? This is so crazy, right? And
If we're talking
I just want
LA, LA is tough. You know, you have a bunch of actors who barely are barely getting by.
yeah, it's crazy. Even my my brother-in-law and sister in the show business, and it's a hard. My sister's done very well. She's at Warner Brothers. She's done very well, but her husband's a comedian, and it's a struggle being a comedian. I mean, his greatest accomplishment was marrying my sister because it's so expensive. It just is, and I feel bad. I really do. I feel bad. My heart goes out to all the people struggling in California. But it's just, like the way I'll explain it is that they just keep doubling down on everything they keep on doing. And I think that the situation in California is only getting worse. It's not better. They keep on doubling down on dumb. And I can't help them. But, if I was them, and I think they have a good heart. But, like I said, when the greatest misguided policy was in 1871 when Great Britain, when cobras, they had 1,000 cobras. They paid the farmers and everyone in New Delhi, India, to kill cobras. Instead, because these people had no money, they got into farming of cobras. And in 1 year, they go from 1,000 snakes to 400,000 snakes. And this is why they got millions of cobras now. Millions. Because of one bad policy. It seemed like a great idea, but it turned out so awful, right? So bad, right? And so
It seemed like a great idea. Yeah, the Cobra effect. This is a good parable. It was the British colonial India during the Raj era, around 1872 to 1873. And like you said, British authorities, these were British authorities in Delhi. They wanted to prevent venomous cobras from killing people. So that's when they offered a bounty, the cash reward for every dead cobra brought in. Why? To reduce the snake population. Makes sense. So locals started killing cobras, and they did it in large numbers. So they thought it was successful. But here's the thing. Entrepreneurs found the opportunity, like we do, and they realized it was more profitable to breed cobras. So they started cobra farms, and they killed the young ones. They collected the bounty. So then officials discover that they're breeding these cobras, and they canceled the program. And now the program's canceled, so that's when the breeders released their now worthless snakes into the wild. And what happened? Even more cobras than before. Now, that story is actually a speculative rumor, but it's still a great parable for unintended consequences, right?
This happens a lot, and this is what's happening in California and in Massachusetts. They always come up with ideas. What they think is, it's like, okay, Section 8, they want to pay people to be renters permanently, right? This is the way they think. They're like, we're going to help these people out. So if you pay people to become a renter, you stay a renter permanently. And so they start like, in a way, it has this consequence of them never climbing the social ladder. Like they'll never really like climb all the way out. So they just have cycles of people just always renters. They were a renter, their kids will be a renter, their kids' will be a renter. And they get into this cycle of renting, not owning, not stability, Home ownership creates stability, legacy, wealth, long-term success. And it's all taken away by a lot of these misguided programs. And things sound good. Like a lot of programs, they sound good because they have catchy names and phrases. But a lot of times they're misguided and they lead to fraud, waste, and abuse. And it never helps the people that it was actually intended to help out. And it's sad. And when you want to help people, you gotta really think everything through. Because of course big government wants to help out big government, right? Just make it bigger, we just do more government. But when you look, what big advantage, and I'll tell the listeners this, that the South and Midwest have over the East and West, is that their mentality up until this point is it's easy to build fast. This is something you can build a home. They can, and I give people an example. I live in a community, they build 68 homes in 6 months. You're like, no way. In California, they would have to get plans approved by multiple different agencies and by more agencies and all these committees to protect endangered species that may or may not exist anymore. We don't know, right? And by the time they do, there's a value to time. So it's just like, well, they're trying to save the rare salamander that may not exist. They've tripled the home price. And that cost gets put onto the consumer. And then California's like, why is it so expensive? Like, they can't figure it out. And the only thing, and I put a lot of thought into this, I was thinking, what would make everyone flee California tomorrow? I'll tell you. And I wanted to bring this up. I thought about this, right? And right now, and I don't think a lot of younger people know this in California, but there's actually something called Proposition 13. They don't know all the details. So in 1978, Proposition 13 was passed that if you bought a house before 1978, that's how old I am, 47 years ago, primary commercial investment, it does not go up in value as long as you didn't do improvements to it, right? Or you only tax the improvements. After 1978, I think it only goes up 1 or 2%, right? And you're like, no way. So you've all
Proposition 13?
Yeah. So a normal person listening to this will say, well, geez, they're just going to get older and then this will change. No, it doesn't work like that. Because all the rich people put everything in a trust, and then that it creates these golden handcuffs where people stay. And then they pass Proposition 19 in 2026, for people over 55 with the wildfires, that you could port your exemptions were portable from one house to the next. And well, this seems all good. You go on homes, and I'll give you an example. My cousin inherited my grandparents' house that was West Hollywood on a hill, right? And my grandparents, we were immigrants. They came over in 68. They bought a house, I don't know, at 72, right? On top of a hill, West Hollywood. I think they bought this thing for $55,000. It's overlooking West Hollywood. The house stinks. Irrelevant. The view is something you guys have seen out of a movie. Worth millions. House worth, we'll call it, I said $3 million. I think, because I'm only saying because I live in Florida, it's probably worth way more than 3. I think the land is worth way more than 3. But what is called 3? You say, well, what does your cousins pay? Depending on what my grandparents pay, because the house stinks. Well, what's that? I don't know, $78 a year. You're like, no way, per year. You're like, well, what's that divided by 12? I don't know. So on a monthly basis, they pay $6 a month in property taxes. And so that's what keeps people in California, is that there's a select few of people that are like stuck. And in fact, that's how they did once try to remove it. I think Governor Jerry Brown did. And that's when the great Arnold Schwarzenegger ran as a Republican. He wasn't Republican. I mean, his wife was a Kennedy, right? Let's be realistic. And he's like, yeah, I think I could just run and try to win. And I guess he won on this, right? He won because someone thought about repealing it. But that would be the great. That's when everyone would immediately leave California if they could like repeal the property taxes and make it fair for everyone. But they can't.
That's not gonna happen
Because you and I don't think it's fair that like a mall is like paying property taxes of like $2,000 that's worth like $40 million, 400 million. You know, it's crazy.
Yeah. Did you say a mall?
Yeah, it's also commercial property. So it could be a mall. So you could have like, some guy like the Rams owner. This is probably his grandfather gave him a mall or a sports team. Who knows? Give him something that's like something like barren, like some like wine estate, right? Yeah, they don't pay any property taxes because the family bought it millions of years ago, and it's just in a trust. So like the ownership never changes, just the beneficiaries do. You're like, no what? Yeah. Skip a generation trust. And it's like unfair because these Californians think like, oh yeah, this is fair. We're taxing the rich. You're not taxing the rich, right? Believe me, you're not. You're taxing this 13% taxes more of the middle class than it does the rich. The real rich have located, they either pay zero or they're relocating to a state that's near zero, right? This is the big thing.
And they have bonus depreciation. Like that's a totally different apples and oranges.
They're not paying like Jeff Bezos is not on a W-2. I think his income is $1. All these
it's less than 80,000. I read somewhere. He's always kept it low because they know what they're doing. So that's a really good point. Like depending on if you're a middle class person in Ohio, you're gonna have a very different life than some of the wealthy people who have bonus depreciation on their commercial property. Totally different ball game.
Yeah. So I think California is well intentioned, but they don't like change. This is the thing, is that California keeps on doubling down on more programs that are also similar, and they sound great. But the reality is that, it's so unaffordable unto a select few that I'll tell you this of my last experience in California, that I went on vacation. I think it was like Orange County. It was like one of these islands. I forget what the island was, but I forget what it was. But we go there. We stayed there for like 8 days, right? I think like the first 2 days we ate breakfast, lunch, and dinner out. I think by the second day I was broke. I said, we're gonna eat it. We're gonna, everything's so expensive. Well, we gotta like preserve our money. So we going back my day. Like I felt like it was so expensive going from Florida to California. It reminded me of like when I studied abroad in London, and I didn't understand like conversion rates. But if you're like a poor college kid, if you look at $1 and the pound was like twice as much, you're like, whoa, that's like what
year was that? Like. That was when you were in college?
That was when I graduated in 2001. So that had to be in 1999 or 1998 that I studied abroad in London.
And the pound.
But it was so expensive. I remember this. I so budgeted that one time, I'll tell you a story. I so budgeted. I had no money in London. I had no business going to London. But I had no money. And I had ordered this extra value meal from McDonald's. I was so excited. I even like supersized everything. And they used to have it. This was like pre-COVID, obviously. That they had like the fountain machine. right? So in London, it was very busy. So I put my fries and my hamburger, Big Mac down. And then I took 3 steps to the fountain machine and I'm like filling it up, the ice. And I got like this big gallon. And right when it was filled up, I turned around and I saw like this homeless guy that took my Big Mac, that was eating my Big Mac and my fries, and he ran away. And I chased this guy like I've never chased anyone for like a mile, and I finally caught him. By the time I caught him, like half my sandwich was gone and my fries were like all on the sidewalk. What was I gonna do, right? But it was just so depressing that that was the last time I went to bed hungry like that. Right? I was very much more careful, but that's how expensive London was. That's the way I feel like California. That like, God forbid someone stole my Big Mac, I'd probably go like to bed hungry.
Yeah, I hate it when that happens.
Right? I was starved. You know what I mean? Like I couldn't afford to lose my meal. Like I would never put down my Happy Meal if I was at McDonald's. I couldn't afford to leave it,
That's tough, man. So is affordability the root cause of the housing issue, or is it something else?
No, I think affordability is a big issue, right? And it's causing a major issue in America because right now in America, the average family has 1.71 kids. So for people that don't understand what that means that means if you have 2 people, husband and wife, they're going to have 1.71 kids. We're dying as a country. We are dying. Our country's getting less. That is not good. You're like, well, what happens? That means we're dying. We are depopulating, right? Because it's too expensive. We can't afford it. It's not like people don't want to have kids. They can't afford it. They keep on delaying because they're trying to like make financial sense of everything. But the reality is that they're poor because everything's so expensive. And they delay having these kids. And I do think social media has something to do with it. They're more, flash than substance and people are waiting longer. But the reality is that, because everything's so expensive, people are delaying longer in life than ever before. And it's very sad for that. This isn't good. And I think the one way that we would fix this is build to the moon. Is that if supply can be increased faster than demand, price will go down. It's just a math equation. That's all this is. There's no debating. If supply is faster than demand, price. In fact, this happened in Austin, Texas in COVID.
Yeah,
right?
It's happening right now. I'm in multifamily, and there's way more supply than demand. So that's, to my point earlier, it depends on what angle you're coming from. But if you're a landlord, it's a very different conversation than if you're a renter. Renters have it great in Austin because landlords are giving concessions for months and months this year.
They do. But I gotta say, the way they do concessions is tricky. I'll tell you a really funny story about concessions. And I'm a black and white person. Like I don't sometimes like understand the gray. Okay. And so I was renting from this fancy management company when I was like 27 years old. And they said, we give you like 4 free months, right? It's like a new complex. I'm like, great. I'm like, what do I pay every month? They're like, yeah, you pay like, I think it was like $1,800 at the time. This was many years ago. So that's to be converting to like $3,000 to $3,500 now. Okay. It was like $1,800. And then, 2 months before my lease was going to expire, I go to them and I say, is my rent going up? They're like, no, your rent is not going up. And I'm like, okay, can I get like my invoice for the following year? They're like, yeah, we give it to you like 30 days before, right? So 30 days come. And I'm like, oh, I haven't got it yet. And I'm like, don't worry, Janet's out of the office. We're going to give it to you. We'll give it to you like next week. So I finally get it like 2 weeks before I was supposed to do it, right? My rent went from like $1,800 to like $3,200. You're like, why? What I didn't understand was those 4 months They take the 12 months, they don't charge you for more, and they divide it by 12. So on your 13th month, you're paying the going rates. And you're like, no way. And
So
they
they
got
just delayed
totally
it.
suckered.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just inflated. That's why I don't like 4 free months, because they don't like say don't pay us for 4 months. They just don't say anything, and then they jack it up. So it's a hard way. But the reality is this for Texas. In Austin, they built to the moon, that people are moving there. And over time, it will go up. So it stinks when that happens. And this is also why, if you're a California person listening, what's happening? The really rich people, this is what the strategy is. Make it hard to build. Why? Ask yourself this. Are they really trying to save the salamander? Or are they trying to keep their net worth high? Do they care about their bank account and their high prices, or the salamander that may or may not exist? And by the way, for your listeners, I like animals more than people. I lived in Key Largo. I love the environment, but I know the scam that rich people use these non-existent Jurassic Park animals as an excuse to come up with reasons to make themselves more wealthy. That's basically what I'm saying. They're not doing it out of goodness. They're doing it to make themselves think about it. The more they delay, the more cost there is. The more cost, the higher something has to cost. So they make themselves more wealthy because they already own the properties. You're like, no way. Yeah. So you make more wealthy. That's why all the rich people live in California, the East and West Coast. It's very easy when you start inflating things. And you're like, and then the middle class has these crazy California social programs. Literally, I can't believe my family escaped communism in Czechoslovakia to come to California, which is now offering shared equity, which is basically a social program. Socialism. You're like, what's next after socialism? Like, it always starts with slow and goes fast. Communism. You're like, well, that sounds good. No, it usually doesn't work. There's never been an American that I think that maybe a couple that have committed crimes. They're like, yeah, let's go to like Cuba and live there permanently. This is a great move, right? Like for other quote education and whatever medicine, like that's not like a hot migration place from like California, right? Even though they have warm weather, I've never met a Californian that wanted to move to Cuba, right? Just saying, right? Like why? Because like communist countries, half the time they don't even have like electricity. Food is terrible. Like, by the way, if you've met someone from a communist country, they usually like blame food. I'm just saying, like, in my expertise, that like communism is a big failure, right? That doesn't mean that like the people are bad that live there. In fact, they're probably really great. But, as a whole, the economic system, and I know you're going to say yes. Well, what do you think of of what we have? Of what I call winning. Look, it's not perfect, but I'd rather winning, right, and growth than like, in a higher standard of living, right? This is what I would say. The average person in America lives much higher than anywhere else, right? And it can be even better by being more, by being capitalist, right? It's much better to be on the system of capitalism. I'm just scared for the East and West Coast. They think Mondani is the answer. No, that's a terrible idea in New York, right? The only thing that are keeping people in New York and California is pre-existing relationships, right? When those start to erode and go away, like no one's moving there. That's what people don't. People are leaving there, not moving there, right? And where are they going? Not
Well,
there.
there's a certain amount of people who feel that way. The thing that people that won't that won't change, or that may not change anytime soon, is the industries are there. So as insane as New York is, with a communist person as mayor, the trying to tax the rich and people believing that bullshit, but the financial industry is still there, and same with California. Like the tech industry is still in San Francisco, so that's why San Francisco has so much rent growth compared to the nation for
You're
multifamily real estate
absolutely,
right now.
and for right now, they got that. But the Texas now is a stock exchange. It didn't have one 30 years ago. You know what I mean? Like certain things, they're allowing other opportunities to happen. It's happening underneath the surface. You're right. That, it's hard to move like a cruise ship, right? But the problem is this also that these mayors, like, when he's going to be gone in 8 years or 4 years, I don't know what his term is, but he's not there forever. He is just managing for his next term, for his 8 years. That's all he's doing. He's managing for re-election, and he ran on trying to get elected. He never ran, I believe, on a realistic platform to make New York great. He ran on an unrealistic. They don't even get free buses yet. Where are those? It cost them. They opened up 5 grocery stores, or going to open up 5, and Aldi, which is a huge, grocery store chain, would have took. I think I saw the stack 5 grocery stores. I think Aldi was, and I don't know if this is true, but I think it was like over 300. I think it was like 391 or 360. So it's just like amazing, like how inefficient New York is. And then with these grocery stores, it's only going to be like a staple of items, and then everything else will be more. And you just know the way this will go. Like, they'll load it up with like lottery tickets and tax the poor on their way out anyways, right? They'll just lottery it up, right? And that's exactly the way they'll try to get themselves out of it. And like, you go, what do you think? It's like they're just not going to win. It's just going to be like a slow. It's just going to go down slowly. It won't be fast. You're right. The way I will explain it is this, because I'm from Massachusetts. When you had springtime in Mass, it was like the first degree of 72. If there was a huge block of ice, it would barely melt. Even at 72, the grass would be green, but your snowman would still be there. And you're, what do you mean? New York and California are just a big snowman. It doesn't mean that the skin isn't starting to shed and get loose and get weaker, and the snowman's still there. But the grass around the snowman is green. And that's what I would say, is that it has already begun.
So in your analogy, New York and California are snowmen? Is that what you said?
That's exactly what it is. They're big snowmen, and it's about 72, and it's just a matter of time. Their snowmen will get smaller. They might be big now. They might be a really big snowman now. But in 100 years, okay, you're like, give me an example of this. Okay, how about Illinois? That was the most popular state. Oh yeah, we can't mention that with that state, right? Bonfire of the state, trash can on fire of the state. Why aren't they number 1 anymore? What happened to that state? Oh yeah, bad management, right? That's what happened to it. It went from a fine Italian restaurant to Papa Gino's. It is what happened. And there's no chance. In fact, Illinois is such a bad state. They're going to lose the Bears. Not only are the Bears going to leave Chicago, they're not even going to go to like Illinois. They're going to go to Indiana. They're going to have the Chicago Bears of Illinois, of Indiana. You're like, no way. You're like, how is this true? Yeah, it's true. And you got the other crazy mayor, Pritzker, that was like, I think he inherited money, some hotel chain. I think it was like Hyatt, right? This Hyatt guy, right? Inherited. He didn't earn it. He inherited it. What's probably an Ivy League school, right? Fancy guy. And like, yeah, he's going to lose the Bears. It's just a matter of time. Now, if you lose the Bears, you're used to be number one, and I don't know what you are now, but if you lost the Bears, and now they're gonna be in Indiana. We're gonna call them the Chicago Bears of, I guess, Indiana. This is then what? What are you saying next? Right? You're gonna, you lose. I mean, didn't you have the Raiders? Oh, where did the Raiders go? Oh yeah, weren't they in California? Oh
They
yeah,
were the
they
LA
went to Las
Raiders. They're
Vegas.
not. I have no idea. I don't follow sports, but
Yeah,
it used to be the
they went
LA
to a
Raiders. They're
tax-free
not anymore.
state. Yeah, they were to LA. They went to a tax-free state. They left Oakland, and they went to like LA to Oakland, or Oakland to LA to Oakland. Then they went to Las Vegas. Then you have the A's, right? The A's are going to Las Vegas. So you lost two teams in California to Las Vegas. So like, if you're like California, if you're such a big snowman, you should lose to no one, right? Because you're like a snowman. Right? But it's just a matter of time. It starts slowly and it goes quick. You're losing the A's. You should never lose a sports franchise team. Like ever. Ever if you're so good. And then, by the way, you guys lose production companies and movies to like Georgia, right? So you're losing more in pockets, and yeah, or more of the industry in California, okay. But you lose dribs and drabs. You lose a couple sports teams, a couple movies. Things start to add up. Same in California, same in New York. You lose this, you lose that, you lose this. It doesn't look like now your snowman's starting to sweat. That's what happens. It just they should just have that. And they go, oh yeah, but we still got this. Yeah, you got it for now. But it's like in regress. You ain't winning. You ain't getting better. You're getting. You know what you are? I'll tell you what LA is. It's like your favorite. It's like Aaron Rodgers. That's what LA is. A once great quarterback that's on his back nine, and he's from California. That's what makes it so ironic. Maybe he's a couple more good years, but it's going to be over before you know it. And that's what people don't realize. Like, things can be great and then they can go away. Like, you could have MySpace. Cool. Then Facebook came. I'm just saying, like, New York and LA would be like Tom of like MySpace at some points. And people won't realize this. Just like Illinois, And what made California great was the open immigration when people moved there like Arnold Schwarzenegger. That is what made California great. This great influx of ideas and hardworking people, right? And they had a lot of people there. Now you're like, what do you think? Think people are going to move to the South and the Midwest. You're like, why? Affordable. That's it. Capital I. And that's it. That's the only way. Right? This is the way it's going to be. And I know what's going to happen. You can't deny numbers. And the numbers are the migration has already happened. And you could hold on. Like they're like a sports team that hasn't won in a while but have a lot of banners up. About time to start winning. That's what I think.
I guess I'm not sure because I would have to see data, and it always depends on what people are doing, for what their intentions are, what their goal is, what they do for a career, because people in tech might, that are in California, they're not gonna go to Ohio. They might go to Austin, but it's like I hear what you're saying, that things change and people move and snowmen melt.
But also to recruit. I'll tell you a story, a funny story. I'll make you laugh, right? So my dad is 77 years old. I think is he 76 or 77? This is embarrassing. I forgot that's because I'm 47. But anyways, I called my dad on his birthday, and I wish him a happy birthday. I'm like, hey, Dad, happy 77th birthday. And, he works at the University of San Francisco. And I'm like, why is my dad working like full time, full stop? and he had a cover for someone. Like, why do you got a cover for someone? Because they're unable, even though cardiologists, quote, make good money, right? Good money, whatever you want to call that. They're unable to recruit cardiologists with, quote, good money because it's so unaffordable. And you're like, no way. Like, think about it. You wouldn't want to, and my dad's a brilliant doctor and physician. He's top of his game. But typically, that's just something that there is a recruiting. Sometimes it's harder to recruit to California in certain industries like physicians because housing in San Francisco is very expensive, and everyone wants, they want to plant their flag.
Yeah, I mean, the weather's great in California. I'll give them that. Like,
they got the best weather.
It's a great place to live as far as the weather. Politics.
They got the best weather. I gotta say this about California. God loves California. Like, he created that state amazingly. Like, it got the best weather, sure, right? And it had a great home field advantage, right? It's just, I don't know what happened, right? They just lost their way a little bit. And I hope they change, for the better, so it can be affordable for all. And you're like, could it be affordable for tomorrow? Because let me stop complaining about California and come up with a solution. If tomorrow you allow developers to build to the moon, just let them build. Stop with the rare Jurassic Park fish, right? You said, go build your homes. You got the biggest builders, which don't want to touch California. D.R. Horton, Pulte, whoever, all the big builders. You said, we'll give you your permits just like California, just like Florida and Texas. Go build. Right to the moon like Austin. Home prices in California would be in 50% within 36 months. And that's the reality. You would see a dramatic decline in home prices. And the reality is the rich people that don't want that. You're like, give me an example why. I'll give you an example. I did an application this year, and the person was like older, like me, 47. And I said to them, have you ever owned a home? And they said, yeah, but they didn't want to talk about it, but they were a first-time home buyer because they hadn't owned a home in like 3 years. And I'm like, I got Zillow up. I'm like, yo, what's the address? And they're like, yeah, I don't want to talk to you about it. I'm like, okay. And so, do the application. And for people listening, your credit report will list like all your addresses that you've ever been. And so then I looked at their last address, and, I talked to them. I'm like, I typed in the address. I'm like, this home is worth like, on Zillow, it's like $3 million almost. I mean, it was like 2,875. And they're like, yeah. And they're like, we didn't want to talk about it. I'm like, well, just tell me. And I got them to talk to me about it. And she was honest. She was like, I'm a nurse. My husband's a physician. We bought it for like $425. We let it go because we lost 25% of our home value, which was like $100,000. And that was $100,000. Why should we lose $100,000? But if they just held on to it, thing is worth like 10x. You're like, no way. Yeah, real estate's the long game. And that's why it's important for everyone to get in at a young age. Because if you just hold it, you win no matter what. You don't even have to refinance. You just hold it and let the thing go up in value. And that's the beauty of home ownership.
Yeah, so you're saying people should buy a house, start a family as young as they can.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
I totally agree with this. Like, I agree they should start a family as young as they can. Buy a home. Much better start young. I mean, this is like, I feel like, that one of the best things, or the only good thing that came out of the Charlie Kirk, that he passed, was that it reinvigorated, a lot more people to go to church. Right? I live right by a church, just to let people know I'm Jewish. And these churches are like packed now. right? They are packed. Bingo night every night. Like it's hard to drive by. And I think that's, with that will come, I think, hopefully couples starting early in life, and we can reverse that 171. We can get it over too. Because we have enough land, or plenty of land, for everyone to have the American dream. Everyone should be able to participate because we can. We just have to put aside the rare salamander from Jurassic Park, and everyone can experience it. We can just increase supply, faster in demand, let everyone build, and everyone will win.
Everyone will win. You make that sound so easy, but the real issue is the money. Your grandparents got that house in the Hollywood Hills, in the 60s or 70s, when the US dollar was still on the gold standard. And since then, the purchasing power of that dollar has gone down. I don't know how much, but a lot. So the kids, no matter how much supply there is, like if they don't know how to allocate capital, cut their costs, increase their income, however, whatever they have to do, the value of the dollar is such that it loses purchasing power every year.
So fast, we agree on this, right? You lose the value, right?
Yeah, so I agree. Like they should buy a house. They should buy, something, even if it's not a house. They should, in my opinion, just buy some kind of assets. Work. It's great if they can buy a house, but
have to relocate. Just like how my grandparents relocated from Czechoslovakia to California, you might have to relocate from California to Arkansas. And that may not seem exciting, but you know what? Think about it. Say you bought a home. Great. I love Arkansas.
Yeah, Arkansas is wonderful.
SEC football. There was nothing against Arkansas. I like Arkansas, for to let people know this, right? But I'm just saying, if you're young, say you're like, hey, let's do this marriage idea. You got married at say 22, you bought a home, and you paid $200,000 for it. Let's just play pretend. If that home goes up 8% for 30 years, and say you just paid the minimum payment, right? So you're 22. When you're 52, it's now worth $2 million, and you don't have a mortgage. That's it. You're like, no way. Yeah.
Oh, that reminds me. I wanted to ask you about this. What do you think of the 50-year mortgage?
Yeah,
Trump's idea.
Oh yeah. So a lot of people don't like the idea because Trump came up with it, right? So we'll start with that. That any idea that comes from Trump, half the people are going to hate and half the people will like. But what do I think? Let me just tell you from a mortgage perspective. When you look at a mortgage perspective, when I'm trying to get a customer approved, one of the steps is that we run it through an automated underwriting system called DU, which stands for Designated Underwriter. It's on my Fannie Mae, or LP, which stands for Loan Prospector, run by Freddie Mac. So you got two government agencies that have these things. So why does that matter? Say I have, for instance, someone with a 680 credit score and I was trying to get them a home loan, right? If I tried a 30-year mortgage, it might say no or refer. But if I set that to a 20 or 15, I might get a yes, because you have an acceleration of equity. The banks don't care as much if they get their money back faster. So if you did have a 50-year mortgage, it'd only be made possible to someone with great credit. So what do I think? It's a tool to get people in. It's better a 50-year mortgage. Okay, what's better? A 50-year mortgage where you get 100% of your appreciation of your home, or something called California Dreams, okay, where you give up 20, you have to pay it back, and then you give up what? 20% of the home value. Okay, why is that fair? because the Democrat came up with it. They got a marketing guy or girl to call it dreams. That's Trump's issue. He should have called it American Dream, and then no one would have complained, right?
Okay.
Like, if Trump had paid a Democrat like Fetterman, because he's like in the middle, right? And said, "Yo, Fetterman, I just need you to like launch this idea. I'll pass something else for you, right?" And like, he didn't want to take credit, but he paid like a Democrat to say, "Let's call it American Dream." We call it the same thing as what California called it. They would have been like, "Yeah, this is brilliant." Because it's sure better to own 100% of your home gain than 80%. In no world where math doesn't math. 100% gain is better than 80%. Even if it came from Donald Trump. The math should matter even if it comes from Trump. Like, your hate for Trump can't be so bad. I don't have Trump derangement syndrome. I don't care. Like, I'm all about the middle class and the people, right? Just so like the background, so people are listening. Like, when I went to Ohio Wesleyan, I went to liberal arts school. I got accepted to the Peace Corps, which literally makes me the biggest hippie. And I was going to Uzbekistan. 9/11 happened in September 11, 2000. I graduated in December and got canceled in February of 01, and then I had to get into the mortgage industry. So you're taking like the person with the bloodiest heart. But I'm definitely smart enough with all these games to realize what happens in trickery. I've seen enough of this trickery, right? And it's a complete scam. So do I think a 50-year mortgage is great? Sure. Do a 1,000-year mortgage where you keep 100% of your home equity is better than like saying we'll do a 15-year mortgage, but we'll keep 50% of your equity. In fact, the Democrats would say, we'll give you an 8-year mortgage, but we get to keep 96% of your equity. They would do that. Like, oh, this is great. You just have, it's called Russian housing. It's like communism. It's like crazy, right? Like, it's just so backwards, right? But not realistic. So what do I think? I think any creative idea that gets the middle class, I ask you one question. Will it help? Here's my test. Will it help middle class buy a home? If the answer is yes, we do it. Sure, I'm for it. Does the shared appreciation help the middle class? Okay, fine. It's better than renting, right? Both, you could do both. But it's sure better than shared appreciation. That's like the other thing, like, I was so surprised that people didn't bring up is a shared appreciation mortgage. Like, they easily could have brought that up. But like, no one did, because that would have been the best counter. That's all I would have done was brought up all of the liberal states that offer shared appreciation, that type of like mortgages. Shared appreciation should be outlawed. How does this even exist? I mean, it's totally terrible. Imagine getting, I don't even want to get into it, but I hate shared appreciation. You lose.
What
you
is
lose
shared
a part.
appreciation? Could you translate that?
Yeah,
It sounds
what it
like
basically means
they're
is
taking either the
the
bank or the
game.
state is taking the
They
game,
take
right?
the game. So if you buy the home for $500,000 and it goes to $1 million at 20%, they take 100,000.
That's crazy.
And you paid 100% of the property taxes. You paid 100% of the insurance.
That's not right.
You paid 100% of the home improvements. So you can do all the improvements, all the remodeling. You still got to pay 20%. So you go, what happens? Well, anyone smart would realize, why would I improve the home if I have to give some of it up? Exactly. You create shittier homes. Like, why would you ever remodel it to anything nice?
There's no incentive to do that.
No incentive.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
That gets back to our discussion about the Cobras, the Cobra story. The incentives are not aligned with this shared appreciation thing. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, because it makes good Instagram. You got homeowners holding keys, and then the real estate industries love it. The mortgage, create more deals. But look, if I had to tell anyone these policies are crazy, I could easily solve it. You could dramatically reduce the price. For anyone in California, if you want to reduce the price, forget the salamander that doesn't exist. Build to the moon. If you build to the moon, there's no issue. Everyone can afford a house. And why should it only be that a select few own the homes? It's not fair. It's just simply not fair. And they just stand up for it. And people think this is like funny. They're like, yeah, but we hate this guy. Good. Right? Like, no, it's terrible. Their values are misaligned. See, what people don't realize is with wealth, we could make the pie bigger for everyone.
Absolutely.
The issues of politicians is they're focusing on the slices of the pie. They should just say, in 5 minutes, I can make Democrats and Republicans, everyone, much more wealthy. All you need to do is increase the supply. Everyone will own a home. And by the way, you increase supply, you increase economic activity, more people will have kids, you'll have more homes, more stable environments. By the way, who's not in jail? By the way, Sean, who's not really in jail?
Who's not in jail?
Yeah, who's not in jail?
There should be.
No, but overall, I'll tell you, who's not
mean?
in jail? The one population that's hardly in jail. I'll tell you, homeowners.
What do you mean?
Very few homeowners ever go to jail. You say, why? Because they got a lot to lose. Why do they have a lot to lose? They got equity. They got their home. They bought their home for $3. It's now worth $7. They have 400,000 reasons why not to commit a robbery or punch someone or do something dumb. They got their own money. The risk of losing everything is a big reason. When you got nothing to lose, you take a risk. Why? You got zero. But when you have everything to lose, that's better than any police officer. The best police is economic stability. Then no one commits crimes. Why would you commit a crime if you could lose everything? You go, I wouldn't do that. Of course. Right.
Well, yeah, you make a good point. Of course. But the real issue is, in order to increase supply, there has to be an economic way to do that. Like everyone in multifamily knows, when interest rates are low and money and debt is cheap, they increase supply of apartments. But right now, that's what's preventing the increase of supply, is the capital inflows to do that.
So look, you'd have to look at it in a different way. Primary residences, and you're seeing it. That's why migration is the South. People are buying homes. They are right in Florida, all over the place. And it won't stop. People are moving here. They may not buy right away, because my first year in Florida, I went from Boston to Key Largo, to Fort Lauderdale, to Jensen Beach. Right? Like I moved my way up, my way down, or up, the way you look at it. Right? So it happens in stages. Stage 1 is moving. And you may not rent. You may live with someone. Stage 2 is paying some rent. Stage 3 is really buying. Right? Is really buying. And they will buy. It's a matter of time. And you got to make it easy for builders. See, this is what I think people in Massachusetts and California, in Florida, you can do an HOA community for single family houses called Pine Urban Development. So they can get around the local laws of less land. By the way, I got plenty of land. But, say maybe put it on 1/8 of an acre versus 1/3 of an acre. And they can build, 68 homes in 3 acres or whatever it is. It's crazy. And they build them all at once. They can build a home for $150,000. I actually, craziest story that I'll tell you, Sean. So I had D.R. Horton. I built and bought in a D.R. Horton community. For the listeners, D.R. Horton is the biggest home builder in the United States. And I became friendly with the GC guy that was in charge. And he was a very confident guy that he thought he was the best home builder. So I asked him, I'm like, how fast could you build a home from zero days? I'm like, how fast can you build one? He's like, oh. And I don't know if he was supposed to tell me this, but he said, yeah, DR Horn had a competition. I'm like, he's like, I won the competition. He's like, I'm like, well, how fast? I don't really want to tell you. I'm like, well, how fast? He's like, 30 days, a little under 30 days. I'm like, the cement can't even dry in 30 days. I'm like, did the home fall down? He's like, well, he's like, this is the last time we ever did this type of contest, but we can build these 6 months, eyes closed. Because like putting up a house is not an issue. We can just roll. He's like, if we can just put up a home, it goes quick, right? They come in and just put everything up. And this is like so surprising because if the towns and the builders work together, by the way, for people that are listening, the builders offered these interest rates of 3.99%. So what they basically do is that they do something called a forward commitment. They own a mortgage company, so they'll basically buy down your rate. They take a loss on the money ahead of time. So they'll borrow at a low rate, take a loss. They'll take a loss on the mortgage end, get you in at 3.99, right? So a $300,000 house, right? Or what's it called? 400. A $400,000 home would be 4 times 4, $1,600 plus tax and insurance and everything. They sold you a $400,000 for $2,400. Cheaper to buy the house than the rent. You're like, no way.
That's in Florida?
Like, think about it. What?
Florida?
Yeah. And in Texas, 3.99. And it's not, they can build a house so cheap. They take a loss on the mortgage. They'll pay realtors up to sometimes a 6% commission. They're right. The math isn't mathing. Yeah. They bought the land for like 80 grand or 100 grand. They can build the home for 100. They sold it for 400. They don't care. They're still doubling their money. Go pull up DR Horton and Pulte. See how much money these guys are making. I mean, they're complaining about their incentives, but they're making so much money. They just go to states where they can build, right? They don't want to deal with fighting with the rare salamander. They'll just build in other places. And by the way, I don't get those deals. You're going to go, why is it good to have a mortgage company in Florida? Because eventually those people will move or they'll refinance. I'll get the money then. But it's crazy.
That's good to know. How can people find you?
Well, they can find me either like on LinkedIn at Phil Gans, or they can call me or text me. I'm always available. 617-529-9317. Again, that's 617-529-9317.
Did you write that down, everybody? Save that number. Is there anything else that we should tell the viewers of Hidden Secrets Revealed Live today that they need to know?
No, I would say thank you so much for having me on. And I would just tell anyone with one last thing: start early. And it's never too late if you haven't started. And take, if you need to make a big move in life, just do it.
Let's do it. I agree. Start early, everybody. You heard Phil. All right, thanks, brother. I'm going to let you go get back to work. I appreciate you being on Hidden Secrets Revealed Live today. This was awesome. All right. Thanks for watching, everybody. Hidden Secrets Revealed Live. Share this, retweet on X. Subscribe if you're watching this on YouTube or Spotify. You're allowed to make fun of me. I don't know if you're allowed to make fun of Phil Gans, but you're allowed to make fun of me. If your jokes are funny, you get my name right. You leave a review on Apple Podcasts. If you want to, you can visit my X profile to learn more. It's not necessary to follow me on X, but I do follow others who are funnier and smarter than me. But it's up to you. whatever you decide, go ahead and follow at Safe New Media on X, FKA Twitter. Team up with me to bring about serious advancement for each other. The plan is for our community to share with each other the systems, the processes, and workflows that we are successfully using in order to help each other grow. It's not a cult, but have you ever felt that deep, powerful sense of belonging that transforms your entire perspective? That's what awaits you in our community. As you hear me talking now, you might begin to imagine yourself surrounded by like-minded individuals who truly understand your aspirations. Picture yourself waking up each morning with renewed purpose, knowing you're part of something greater than yourself. Your future self is already thanking you for taking this step today. The door is open, and all you need to do is walk through it. Belong higher. Join our inner circle on Telegram. Join our inner circle on Telegram. It's for Safe New Media. It's totally free. There's a link to it at the top of the Safe New Media X profile. The official source for this show is safenewmedia.com/HSRL. Now, let me tell you about this. The AI apocalypse. Small business fix. AI apocalypse, small business fix. Most small business owners know AI is changing things and have no idea where to start. They're running their business. They don't have time to figure it out. All businesses that neglect becoming AI first will be eradicated. Don't let it happen to yours. Go to safenew.media. That's safenew.media to get your AI audit for small businesses now. An AI audit is a roadmap we build for businesses. It shows you exactly where AI can improve your operations, customer follow-ups, scheduling, marketing, repetitive admin work, etc. We find the gaps, explain what's possible, and hand you a clear written plan. Here's what you'll receive. You will receive a written report, simple, clear, no fluff. Now, this is for you if you're a business owner with around 50 employees or less. You realize what's coming, the AI tidal wave. You're aware that if you do nothing, your business is in trouble. When I started what became Safe New Media, it was at the beginning of COVID-19. Remember that, ladies and gentlemen? Panic was in the air. I was in New York City. It was crazy. That's when I helped entrepreneurs adapt. Live stream video, content creation, not to mention Zoom meetings. That was not something people did. Zoom was not ordinary before 2019. Today, a similar paradigm shift is happening. After the ChatGPT moment came the OpenClaw moment. The new normal is the next inflection point from another AI breakthrough. Are you falling behind? Ready to change with the times? Or would you rather get left behind? Secure your AI audit now. Limit 3 clients per week. First come, first serve. You will be added to our waitlist when at capacity. Go to safenew.media. What I'm about to tell you next will shock you.
This is not an offer, solicitation of an offer to buy or sell securities. Past performance is not an indication of future results. Investing involves risk and may result in partial or total loss. Prospective investors should carefully consider investment objectives, risks, charges, and expenses, and should consult with a tax or legal advisor before making any investment decision.
Before making any investment decision, do your own research. This is not financial advice. Are you an accredited investor? This is for you. Today, the market has shifted. We're at the bottom of the cycle for multifamily real estate. Rent growth in the Sun Belt is at 0%. Most investors are about to get wiped out. Real estate has a dirty secret. I mentioned this on our podcast today. It doesn't follow demand, it follows cheap money. And when money gets cheap, people build too much every time. That bill is due now. So 2 opposing facts are true. Many apartment owners are distressed. The only reason they need to sell is not that they want to. They have to, or else return the keys to the bank. The other fact is this. Families are stuck as forever renters. We talked about this today on the podcast too. Forever renters. Families are renting forever into the foreseeable future. We're seizing this shift. We're passing on the majority of deals because the numbers don't work, but we are buying 100-unit assets in growth markets, sometimes less than 80 units. Few get in. Why? We don't need more money. We're looking for investors aligned with our values. We're improving quality of life at scale for hardworking families. Secure a place on our wait list. Go to Inveresta.com. You can now subscribe to our newsletter. That secures your place. You can now receive your free guide. It's called Location Science 2026, 5 filters to find growth markets for multifamily real estate. Don't ignore the data before you invest. When you subscribe, you secure your place on our wait list for the next opportunity. You know what most real estate people tell you? Multifamily real estate people especially. Invest in your own backyard, right? What if your backyard is the wrong location? Avoid losing money in the wrong location. Hit me up on our X profile at Inveresta. Retail investors can send me a DM there. Let me know what kind of investment opportunities you are looking for. Accredited investors can get in touch with me today. Call my office. Go to Inveresta.com. Accredited investors only. This is not an offer or solicitation to the general public. Last thing before I let you go, I want to invite you to subscribe to Methods of Prosperity newsletter. This is the newsletter that I write every week. You owe it to yourself to be rich. Society, our parents, teachers, and peers have conditioned us. They want us to be like them. They need us to comply. They need us to be conventional, like they are. As Herb Kelleher, co-founder and CEO of Southwest Airlines, remarked, all the people that were telling me those things were expressing conventional wisdom. And if it's conventional, it ain't wisdom. And if it's wisdom, it ain't conventional. My name is Sean Allen Fenn, and I'm obsessed with prosperity. This is the natural state of the human spirit. It turns out there's no limit. There's also many variables. Some keep their day jobs. Others go all in. Some are entrepreneurs. Others are value investors. But all of them have a certain mindset. Understanding what makes them tick grants us insight into our own journey. Methods of Prosperity newsletter is for anyone who agrees success leaves clues. It's the most popular newsletter to brainwash yourself rich. Become a renegade billionaire today. Go to safenewmedia.com/newsletter. To become a billionaire, one must first be conditioned to think like a billionaire. You can now subscribe for free at safenewmedia.com/newsletter. We also have a Telegram community. Join our Methods of Prosperity Telegram community. Thanks for making this the most popular live stream at this hour on this subject, broadcasting on X, formerly known as Twitter. Hidden Secrets Revealed Live is a production of Safe New Media, unconventional, diversified, global digital media company devoted to the practice, administration, and dissemination of the ideologies of its founder, moi, yours truly. My name is Sean Allen Fenn, and this is definitely not a cult. I like you, but don't take my word for it. Decide for yourself.